a new college sports rivalry is born, and it may be the greatest rivalry we have ever seen. Officially in the NCAA tournament, there are no perfect brackets, which means we get a redo, and we're going to take the teams that are remaining and see if we can get it right the second time around. And can any athlete actually transcend generations? We're going to debate that and more coming up on Sports Talk with Dad right now. Welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. As always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who blasphemes on pizza, my dad, Tim.
I do not blaspheme on
You
pizza.
do blaspheme on pizza.
So you come over to my house the other night, and I've got pizza made, and you go, "Oh, this looks awesome."
I was starving.
You were starving until you saw my pizza. And then
You
went,
ruin pizza.
I made pizza better because I put pineapple on it.
No.
Pineapple and ham.
No.
Pizza is the best pizza there is.
It ruins pizza.
No, it
As
doesn't.
a strong Italian male, I say you blaspheme.
You're like a quarter Italian.
It counts. Listen, my great-grandmother was directly from Italy,
Yeah,
and she would hate you, even though you're like the one person she actually enjoyed.
I always worried about getting your mom's family, considering their connection to certain other groups.
They're Italian. Let's leave it at that.
Yes, Uncle Rocco, I got to meet once.
Yeah, don't forget Guido. I mean, it's as Italian as you can get, guys. And if they heard you talk about pineapple on pizza, they would use their connections to take you off this planet, and rightfully so.
No, pineapple on pizza, it's a sweet, salty.
No.
It's really good.
You're not supposed. The sweetness comes from the sausage, and the pepperoni is the extra salt involved in it.
Okay, I admit something, and I am unusual in this regard. I don't like pepperoni.
Excuse me?
I don't. I never have. I do not like pepperoni. I always have sausage. Never been a fan of pepperoni.
Excuse me?
You heard me.
You accept pineapple on pizza,
Yes.
but pepperoni is a bad thing.
Yes.
Blasphemer.
Maybe.
Blasphemer.
I like pineapple on ham, which is my favorite.
You like pineapple on ham?
Pineapple and shrimp.
Excuse me?
I've had that. It's not bad. I like pineapple and ham better.
Shrimp on a pizza?
Yeah, I've done it once.
What are you doing? It bothers. See, I'm weird though. Like the barbecue chicken pizza,
Yeah.
I like it. Not pizza. That is not pizza. I don't know what that is, but it's not pizza. Breakfast pizza. Love breakfast pizza. Not pizza.
No.
Especially the Red Baron individual one. The things that burned the roof of your mouth before you went to school. So good. Not pizza.
Pineapple
Pizza
and
is
ham is
cheese.
pizza. Cheese, sauce, pineapple, and
No,
ham.
cheese, sauce, meat. Cheese,
Yeah.
sauce, meat.
It has ham.
Or
and then
cheese
pineapple.
and sauce and crust.
No, pineapple. Expand your
No.
palate.
There's there's traditions in the world. It's like starting opening day in Cincinnati. There are certain things that shouldn't be changed or bad things happen.
Yeah,
Baseball
look-
changed it.
And look what's happened.
Bad things happened.
Pineapple.
Pineapple on pizza, it's the sign of the apocalypse. You know how they spell pineapple in binary? 666. I don't know
But
if that's
you-
true, but I'm with it.
Ask the audience what they think.
You let us know what you think in the comments below. Tell him he is wrong.
No.
I'm a strong Italian male, and I refuse to believe it. I may be 50% Irish and a little bit of German, but I'm taking the Italian side on this one.
More people are going to say they think I'm right.
No,
because they
they're
always
not. You
do.
let us know what you think in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it.
So you came over when I had the pizza for a reason.
I did, and I'm not happy about the reason.
I am very happy about the reason.
There is a new great rivalry in sports, and it is outstanding.
So over the last 5 years, Wisconsin women's hockey has won 4 of the last 6 championships.
Yep.
Over
Last
the
6 years.
Last 6 years. Over the last 4 years, Wisconsin's won 2, Ohio State's won 2, and they have been some of the best hockey games I've ever seen in my life.
If you did not see the women's final, hockey final, Ohio State versus Wisconsin on Sunday afternoon, you missed what might have been the greatest hockey game I have ever seen.
It was probably the greatest one I've ever seen. I've seen Tampa Bay Lightning games,
Yeah.
playoff games.
Yeah. It was
came down
edge
to
of
the
your
last.
seat.
Well, and think about last year as well. It
Overtime.
It was down to the last minute. Ohio State scores to win the game. This year we go into overtime. They score the tying goal with 19 seconds left
On a cheating penalty call. Cheaters. Cheaters. Coaches' challenges should not be allowed because that was not a goal. The game was over.
Would you like to now be honest about this?
No.
The Wisconsin was going to score. The Ohio State defender fell on the puck and did a great job of trying to fish it underneath her body,
Yes.
but she stopped it. Penalty shot, and then one of the most brilliant penalty shots I've ever seen.
That was some of the greatest puck stick handling I've ever seen in my entire life. For those of you that don't know, and if you've watched the show, you clearly know this, but I'm a huge Ohio State fan. He is a huge Wisconsin fan. And so the last few years for women's hockey, we have been extremely engaged in these championships.
Pucky hockey player.
Still the greatest thing
Wisconsin.
McDonald's has ever made
Yes.
is those Badger bobbleheads.
It is, but the games, I would put these games up against any men's game I've ever seen.
Oh,
I mean,
it's not even, this is good hockey. This is great hockey.
USA, Canada, as great as those games were, this was just as exciting.
It's college sports at its finest.
Yes.
And it came down. So for those of you that didn't see the last play, I highly suggest you go and watch the highlights of this game because even the highlights have you on the edge of your seat. It's 3-2. Ohio State was up 3-1 in the second. Wisconsin scores late second, early third period. And then there's literally 25 seconds. Wisconsin has the puck. And they shoot, the goalie misses, which is too bad because that goal, both goalies were pulling saves out of their behinds all night. And the defender makes one of the best plays in the crease where she sees the puck and she has the wherewithal to try and slide the puck. Now in hockey, you can slide it with your glove, but you can't grip it. And what she did, she couldn't get it behind her because of her angle, so she tried to put it underneath her and didn't grip it. There's no proof that she gripped it. Her hand was underneath her.
It was a brilliant play. I think the officials got it right. I loved in the overtime, or for the penalty shot, all the players were surrounding Mark Johnson, the coach of the Badgers. He looked at the team and said, okay, who wants the shot?
Gives me chills.
It was just
For those of you that don't know who Mark Johnson is, by the way,
shame on you.
He was the MVP of the 80 Olympics, right?
Correct.
Yeah, he was the MVP of the 1980 U.S. Olympic team. He was the leading goal scorer of the 1980 Olympic team, had an outstanding college career, a great NHL career. His dad was the head coach of UW-Madison, Wisconsin. He was a Badger head coach.
Badger Bob on the men's side.
On the men's side, Mark Johnson had two daughters, started coaching women's, and is a big reason women's hockey is as popular as it is today. And the head coach, Nina Musel of Ohio State, she played in Minnesota, was an assistant there before getting hired at Ohio State, and she is an outstanding coach. This is great hockey.
I can only hope that next year for the finals it's Wisconsin, Ohio State. 5?
4.
4.
That would be 4 in a row for them.
Yes, it would.
Yep, they weren't in there. It's really when the new coach, Nina Musel, I'm going to say her name wrong, but when she came in, she changed the program. And immediately they were a championship caliber team. Dude, what a great hockey game. It's got to be the greatest rivalry in college sports right now. Back-to-back-to-back finals.
I want 4.
And Ohio State needs to win it.
No, I don't think we need to go that far.
They do need to win it. It is outstanding hockey, and I'm so mad at the way the game ended. Because, listen, I like fairness in sports, and
it was a great ending.
I refuse to admit that was a penalty. No matter, my hypocrisy knows no bounds, sir.
In this case, you're right. What I've been amazed is, Badger Bob, Hall of Fame men's hockey coach.
Yep.
You never see the son come and do what he did. I'm glad he never coached men's hockey. I really am.
His own legacy.
He's built his own legacy on the women's side. Legacy, not whatever I said.
Legacy?
That one. He's done it on the women's side. He's won 8 championships since he's been there.
Yeah.
And these last 4 years, some of the greatest hockey we've ever seen.
The ending too, again, watch the highlights. But I feel so bad for the Ohio State defender. Shot on goal. Great save by the goalie, but it ricochets off her leg. The defender has it. She has her stick on it, but the Badger player came from behind her and got the puck. Goalie's laid out because of the last save she made, and they put it in the back of the net. That's all she wrote. Oh, I was sick to my stomach.
I wasn't. I was yelling real loud. We need 4 in a row.
I left shortly after that. Not only did he blaspheme pizza by putting pineapple on it, and I had to find something else to eat in the house.
You could have eaten the pizza.
I couldn't have.
It was really good.
I couldn't have. The only thing that was worse than that was last night. I tried to get cute with ice cream.
Oh,
because
God.
I'm in Lenten mode, so I'm trying not to eat too much sugar until he brings over Kringles. But I hate you for that.
We're seeing Kringles.
Yeah, I have no willpower. I know not what it means. But we have an ice cream maker. I didn't think we did, and then I remembered he bought one for us a long time ago, and I was like, "Hey, where's that ice cream maker?" He's like, "Oh, it's on the tool bench in the garage." And I went and got it. I got this protein powder. It was Oreo protein powder, and it smelled terrible. Tried it, tasted terrible.
You know what?
But for some reason, I was like, maybe it'll taste good in ice cream. It did not.
You know what the boy said when I came in today?
No.
Grandpa, can you bring us real ingredients for ice cream?
It was so. I got sick to my stomach because I ate it out of spite. So I'm like, I made it.
Course.
I took 30 minutes to make this. I'm gonna eat this. It was 65-ish grams of protein, 450 calories, and I almost puked. It tasted so chemically. Ugh, it's gross.
Okay.
As bad as pineapple on pizza.
No.
Go Buckeyes.
Go
always and
Bucky.
forever. Bucky cheated.
Bucky did
they
not
paid
cheat.
off the refs. Clearly.
Really? You're going to be this petty?
Petty is my middle name.
I acknowledge the fact that Ohio State won fair and square last year.
You did not.
Even though they cheated, Wisconsin comes through and wins in a beautiful game. Acknowledge it and move on with your day.
You didn't acknowledge Ohio State won last year until Wisconsin won this year. So I don't want to hear your nonsense of all of this, but I am hoping for 4 years in a row of this. Brutus, get him back next year.
Congratulations, Bucky.
And by the way, Wisconsin needs to move away from the W and go back to Bucky Badger.
No argument. They've done it on the men's basketball shorts, which I love.
Yes.
But Wisconsin is Bucky Badger.
Correct.
It's time for the Motion W to go away.
Bye-bye.
It's been around since the 90s, since Barry Alvarez. It's time. It's time to bring Bucky back where he belongs.
Right. Ohio State has such a classy logo with the O with Ohio State through it. We've never had to change it. It's a championship logo. That was really gross, by the way.
Yeah.
That sound was disgusting.
Almost as gross as the Ohio State mascot.
Some people can't handle champions, it is what it is.
Anyways, I made a comment during my last word last week.
Yeah.
Where I said, look, could players from yesterday play in today's game? I thought it was a throwaway. It was a nice setup for this week.
It wasn't.
Oh, my God. I got more comments going, why are you saying something and not going into it? And you've got to explain what you're saying.
Yeah, why are you saying something? Your last word is supposed to be the last word on something we talked about.
Not always.
Not something that I don't get a chance to respond to. That was unacceptable behavior.
You responded the week before and you were just mad and vicious. And so
it's who I am.
Here's what we wanted to talk about. And we've had this debate long before we even had the show. Because I've maintained forever guys like Bart Starr could have, and he should be in the GOAT conversation every time it comes up, but he would have easily been able to play in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. Not a problem. Because if he would have played, say he was playing during the Tom Brady era, he would have been Tom Brady. He would have had the nutritionists. He would have been working out. His strongest muscle was between his ears, just as Tom Brady's was. And he would have definitely been
a third-string quarterback at Alabama.
Yeah, and he was a greatest quarterback in the top 2 or 3 ever to play the game.
Were he and
the
Namath at
NFL.
Alabama at the same time, by the way?
He had left before Namath got there.
It was. Okay.
Namath was there in the 60s,
Got
early
it.
60s.
I get confused at eras because they
Yeah.
kind of crossed over but weren't really the same era. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true because Namath didn't show up until much later. I
yeah, like
forgot how long
65,
Starr was
66.
around.
And Starr, they had a change in coach at Alabama.
Yeah.
Mayor Bryant came in.
Yep.
And
He had his own players.
yeah, and that's what happened. And thank God for the AD at Alabama because he knew the guys in Green Bay, and he said, "You got to draft this kid."
Yeah.
And they did. That was when they had 17 rounds.
They did. He was 10th round selection.
Yeah. And
No, he was 17th round
I was
selection.
going to say, he was like 16th round.
Yeah.
And he just fit with what Lombardi was doing with his offense. He called all his plays. He really was the offensive coordinator on the field, as all quarterbacks were during that era.
Well, and Lombardi wanted to change the offense around from what it was because don't forget, Paul Hornung was their quarterback at that time.
Yes.
And it was a much more running game. And the evolution of football had really taken over, and he saw Hornung more as a running back.
And he was. He was a Hall of Fame running back, and he also had Jim Taylor. They invented the Green Bay Packers sweep.
Yep.
But could other players have done that? Say Brady played back in the 60s. He wouldn't have had the training. He wouldn't have done the nutrition. And he would have been playing against guys like a Deacon Jones who was out to kill every quarterback he ever played.
Here's the thing we have to look at, okay? So we're using Starr and Brady as these examples, right?
To start with.
They're such different games. And Starr didn't have the arm that Brady has.
Because he never had the training that
Can't
he
say
did.
that.
Sure I can. Starr could throw a great pass. He just didn't. It was a different game. I will grant you that. But he would have translated very well to the West Coast offense of Joe Montana. He could have easily played in today's game. He had a good arm. He could throw a bomb.
You didn't need to throw it 60 yards down the field. I mean, don't forget, Brady could throw it 70 yards down the field almost on a dime.
Okay. And you give Starr the same training that Brady would have had, the same nutritionist.
All right, so time out. Let me make sure for my own sanity and for the audience to actually catch up to what we're talking about here. We're saying in this argument that they are basically growing up in the same time period. We're not plucking them out and putting them in today. We are saying, no, they are growing up in that era, getting the same training that was there, in the same type of systems that were there, and then
I
they
don't
transcend.
There's not a lot of difference between Brady and Starr. I mean, don't forget, Brady was a late round draft pick in his era.
He was.
Starr was as well.
Neither of them were full-time starters at their university.
No. You put, and let's take it back. Think of Tom Brady growing up in the 40s, in the 50s.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
we're growing up in that
They're
time
having to
frame.
grow up.
Then it's a bit of a different story. In football, I think it's much different because you look at the size of people today. Like today, just look from the 80s, right? Mike Golick. Let's use him as an example here. I don't know how tall he is, but
Well, let's use Ray Nitschke.
okay, Ray Nitschke.
Ray Nitschke was 6'2", 235, something like that.
Yeah.
And he was a middle linebacker. Dick Butkus was in that same range. He was probably 6'4", 250.
So it's still about the size of a middle linebacker today.
Correct.
But they were a freak of nature.
Yeah, the defensive ends were a lot smaller than what you see today.
Well, they weren't as athletic.
No.
You look at a Myles Garrett today, again, freak of nature in any era, but you didn't have to be as quick because it was stuffing the run.
Mm.
The sack wasn't even invented until what, the 70s, 80s?
In the late 60s with Deacon Jones.
That's when it became a thing, right?
Deacon Jones was
I don't know when sack became a stat.
It was because of Deacon Jones. He invented the term.
Right.
And he was not as big anywhere near as big as Reggie White even.
Reggie White, man. Well, Reggie White was 6'5", 260.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude was a freaking
and
freak of nature.
You put Reggie White or a Lawrence Taylor back in the 60s.
You put Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor today, and they're destroying people.
Correct.
But even if you let's look at offensive linemen, right? You look at college, Jerry Jones was an offensive lineman at his size, and they were small to begin with. But an offensive lineman, a left tackle, if you were 6'1", 6'2", 265, you were a starting left tackle in the NFL. Today, left tackles are 6'7", 350.
I think what this comes
330, maybe.
take the lineman out because there is a drastic difference in size.
I don't think football translates the same way.
It doesn't.
Also, how tall was Bart Starr?
6'2".
Was he that tall?
Yeah.
How tall is Tom Brady?
About the same size.
I need to look this up. You keep talking.
Okay. You have to look at the skill players. Could Don Hudson have played in the 1980s? And remember, if you don't know Don Hudson, he invented most of the pass patterns. And Jerry Rice, of all people, has given him a ton of credit for inventing the modern wide receiver position.
Bart Starr was 6'1", Tom Brady 6'4".
I didn't realize Brady was that tall.
I didn't realize Bart Starr was
6'1".
that tall.
Okay.
Either. So 6'1" as a quarterback today?
You can still do that.
No.
How tall is Aaron Rodgers?
He's 6'2".
Okay.
No, he's taller than that.
No,
How
he's
tall
not.
is Aaron Rodgers?
No, Aaron Rodgers, I think, is 6'1" or 6'2".
I think you're wrong on this.
Find out.
6'2". I was wrong.
Thank you.
Yep.
Don't question me.
I always will.
Anyways, skill position players, I think, would translate from era to era. I don't think you can do it with linemen.
No.
Don Hudson would have been able to play in the 80s. Again,
Don Hudson is Julian Edelman today. Yes, still in the league, but he took advantage of a huge rule change, and the same Babe Ruth did with home runs. Babe Ruth still would have hit home runs, okay? Still would have hit home runs.
We're going to get to him in a minute.
I know. But if you look at Don Hudson, the rule had changed. Passing, it used to be a penalty if it was an incomplete pass, so nobody threw. Then they got rid of that, and nobody was prepared for Don Hudson.
He had the skills. He invented the routes. And if he gets the same training and puts in the same effort of a Jerry Rice or a Terrell Owens, he would have been able to play. Now, would he have been the star that he was in the 40s? I think you're right about that.
Don Hudson was 6'1".
Okay.
6'1".
That's still a wide receiver in this league.
A slot receiver.
How tall was Jerry Rice?
How tall is Jerry Rice?
Good Lord.
People can tell we don't really have these conversations as much off the air. All right, Jerry Rice was 6'2".
Thank you. Again, I am right. He is wrong. These guys translate. Running backs would O.J. Simpson.
Oh, that's a good example. Of all the running backs, you chose O.J. Simpson.
Okay, Franco Harris. Like it or not, O.J.
You could have picked Earl Campbell. You could have picked Franco Harris. You could have picked Jim Taylor. You could have picked Jim Brown. And you went O.J. Simpson.
Like it or not, he was one of the best running backs the game has ever seen.
That's fine.
First guy to go 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
He was a killer. Sorry.
That's what this was all about.
Yes.
That's okay. I got to let you get to your little joke.
Yes.
Got it.
Jim Brown, still maybe the greatest player to have ever played the game.
Jim Brown would translate. Very much so.
He was a fullback. We don't have fullbacks now. He would have been a halfback today. But you look at those guys. Earl Campbell's another one. You couldn't tackle him then. You can't tackle him now.
No, and Derrick Henry proves that Earl Campbell would work today.
Yes. And so would Walter Payton. So would Gale Sayers.
Stars would translate any generation, especially, again, if you're having the circumstance where they grow up with the same training. If you take a Johnny Unitas, a Jim Brown, a Bart Starr, and you put them and grow up at the same time frame as the players today, then I think they could translate.
What we wouldn't see is Ken Stabler having a beer on Saturday night, looking at the playbook and coming out and playing Sunday.
No.
You wouldn't have a Max McGee going and partying until 5 a.m. and then coming out to perform. Still the greatest Super Bowl story in the history of the Super Bowl.
Should have been the Super Bowl MVP.
Absolutely should have. You won't have those stories. It was a different era. Guys, remember, these guys weren't even full-time football players.
Right.
They had regular jobs in the offseason.
Right.
So there was no training. They went to training camp to get into shape to play.
They did.
It's not like today.
No six-pack abs, none of that stuff. It didn't exist. But if you look at a majority of players from today, they could go back and would probably be different positions back in those days. But if you look at like offensive linemen from the 60s, they were much smaller.
Guys are humans. I mean, you look at guys that were playing out. Jerry Kramer, classic example. We met him. And granted, he's an older gentleman, so he's lost some height. But he was a big guy back then. Then you look at Joe Thomas.
Right.
the size difference that they've gotten, and humans are just getting naturally bigger.
Yes.
So I agree with that.
Jerry Kramer was 6'3". Okay, hold on.
Jerry
Time
Kramer
out.
was 6'3".
Jerry Kramer is 6'3",
How much?
245. So he would have had to put on weight.
You would have, yeah, but again, he would have come out of high school probably at 225. And you look at what happens in the Big Ten. Look at all the offensive linemen that Barry Alvarez ran through. They may have come in at 250, but they played at 300.
Yes, definitely.
So the weight training that goes on today is markedly different than anything they ever did back in the day.
Yeah, I'm starting to change my mind.
Aaron Rodgers would have been playing in the AFL back in the day.
Because that was the game.
That was the game. It was a passing league. He still would have been great, as would have Joe Montana. Joe Montana would have been interesting because he was a smaller guy. And could he have taken a Deacon Jones coming after him and just destroying him?
Well, and that's the question with Tom Brady, too. And that's what you have to look at for newer players. By the way, Forrest Gregg was also 6'4". These 6'4", 250.
That was a
as
giant
a left tackle
back in the 1960s.
Yeah, they're big guys. So they play different positions now. If you look at the players today and you put them in football specifically and you put them back in that time, it's a much more physical game. Could they have adjusted to it? And again, you're putting them growing up in that time where everything was much more physical.
Correct.
And so your bodies react differently to different things. I think a lot of reason certain players get hurt today is because that physicality is really taken away in practice and everything. And how can you prepare to be hit on Sunday if you don't get hit?
Correct.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
They were hitting all week long. You look like a Terry Bradshaw, who he was another guy.
He got
4-time Super Bowl, and he got crushed. So did Roger Staubach.
Yeah.
These guys are great athletes for their time. I think they would have translated if they grew up in it, as you said, and had the training that these guys that are playing today did.
I don't know.
Come on.
I'm starting, after seeing the size of some of these guys, I thought they were a lot smaller. These were still big guys.
They were. And I will take this to the grave. You put Bart Starr in the same training program that Bart Starr would have been Tom Brady if he would have grown up in this era, because his strongest muscle, as I said, was in between his ears. He was one of the smartest field generals to ever play.
The issue he would have had being 6'1", he was around the same size as Drew Brees. And Drew Brees was always known for being short.
Aaron Rodgers is 6'2". Starr was 6'1". He would have been just fine.
It's a big difference. It's an inch.
He was still playing behind guys 6'4" and 6'5".
Yeah, apparently. So never mind. Now, I will argue with Don Hudson. Don Hudson does not translate. If you look at the guys from the 60s, I'll give you, okay? I'll even give you some of the 50s guys. They may translate today. But I think 60s and up, yes. If you look at the 40s and especially the 30s, no way they translate today.
Hudson he would not have been Jerry Rice. I think you're right. He would have been more of a slot receiver because who knows who invents all these pass plays if Don Hudson doesn't play.
Yeah, he was born in the right era.
Correct.
And retired over $500 actually. Retired over $500.
Yeah, and he retired so he couldn't get that a few extra touchdowns he would have gotten.
Yeah, ended with 99. Still sad. Devontae Adams should have broke that record, but that's a story for another day. Okay, we talked football. We talked football. So they might. Baseball. Now, this is where I agree with you. Baseball hasn't changed.
Well,
baseball is the same sport since 1920, at least.
Yes, baseball is still a sport where you've got to hit a round ball with a round bat and find a way to hit it square. These guys have the best hand. I mean, Ted Williams famously had 20/10 vision. He could actually see the seams on the ball.
That's why I was a pilot.
Yeah, exactly. Tony Gwynn would have been able to play back in their era and take out the fact of the Negro Leagues and whatever. Josh Gibson would have easily played today. He would have been a monster, and he would have, who knows how many.
Babe Ruth isn't as popular if Josh Gibson is allowed to play in the major leagues.
I would argue that they both would have been even bigger. Because don't forget,
it would have been a race.
Babe Ruth was a decade before Josh Gibson. Josh Gibson was mainly in the 30s and 40s. Babe Ruth was really the 20s. Yeah.
I thought Josh Gibson was at the same time.
No, he was a little bit later.
Well, and you can't take the argument of the segregation of baseball, because while Babe Ruth did not necessarily play against all the best pitchers, Josh Gibson also did not play against all the best
Correct.
pitchers.
Now, they did barnstorm,
Yes.
and they both succeeded against the
One
guys they
another,
played
yeah.
against in an exhibition. Satchel Paige would have been just as devastating a pitcher in the 40s as he would have been today.
There's the question. Hitters, I agree with you. Ohtani would have translated. Babe Ruth would have translated. They'd both be stars in their own leagues. This whole idea of fat Babe Ruth was one of the most athletic people on the face of the earth. He wasn't that fat.
No.
Towards the end, he was.
Sure.
But he couldn't walk anymore. Like, he had to have somebody run the bases for him. His knees were shot, and he was so sick towards the end of his life and even towards the end of his career. He died shortly after. I don't think people realize how long Babe Ruth was sick.
Who knows how long he had throat cancer?
A long time.
I think so. And he was hanging on. He wanted to be a manager so badly. Nobody gave him a chance. People forget. He homered in his last game.
3 times.
3 times.
3 times. And the last one, he got to run the bases themselves. They made a rule change that he was the one player that could have a pinch runner, and he could still come up and hit.
Correct.
They made that change specifically for him. But I think he would translate today. Pitching.
He was a left-handed pitcher.
Pitchers today could not translate to even back to the 90s.
No, because they don't pitch as much.
They don't. They're not stretched out. The starter is dead. And today's, you have the Verlanders and the Scherzers and the Clayton Kershaws. They could translate to any era in the same way that if you look at a Warren Spahn or a Walter Johnson, Bob Gibson, Satchel Paige you mentioned, they would translate very, very well today, because it's not about power. And that's where people in baseball get messed up, especially younger generation fans. Even people of my generation get this messed up. I'm just such a baseball freak that you have drilled in my head the history of baseball. And I loved Greg Maddux, who never threw a 90-mile-per-hour fastball. They knew how to work the count and work the batter and work the pitcher. And they also had the advantage of the inside part of the plate belongs to me.
And none of them ever threw as hard as they could early in the game.
No. Fergie Jenkins was famous for giving up a run in the first inning.
Give up a home run.
Every first inning.
Yep.
I don't think Fergie Jenkins ever threw a shutout, because
Probably
he
not.
always said, I need to save my stuff for the third time around. The third time around, I'm going to show them stuff they have never seen before. And that's that. Now we're obsessed with, I don't want my pitchers to ever see a batter the third time around. We're going to give them someone new. What are they going to see? Another freaking fastball?
Another 95-mile-an-hour fastball. And by the way, I think Reggie Jackson said this, 95 miles an hour coming in straight goes out just as fast after I hit it. They can hit a 95 or 100-mile-an-hour fastball. These guys are so good.
Yep.
They can hit it. It better have movement on it.
And a lot of them don't. We'll look at Chapman. Chapman's gotten back up to, 105 a couple of times, and that's when people can't get around on him. But if it starts slowing down, it just goes like this.
Yes.
And we talked about that when he first came up. So pitchers back then, I think, would translate better today than the pitchers today would translate back in the 40s, 50s, 60s.
We've had this conversation. If Nolan Ryan was Corbin Burns when he was going for the no-hitter and Craig Counsell tried to pull him out, Craig Counsell would have been on his ass with a black, bloody nose, because Ryan would have taken him out, as would Bob Gibson.
I think Corbin Burns regrets not punching Craig Counsell in the face.
I guarantee it, because you don't get those chances at a no-hitter very often in a career.
You don't get chances at immortality ever. And that was a chance at immortality.
Let's do it this way. Perfect example. Who is your favorite baseball player of all time?
Kerry Wood.
He never gets that 20 strikeouts in today's game.
Nope.
They would have pulled him after 5 because it was a rainy day.
Yep.
And he had thrown over 100 pitches, even though he was as sharp could be, struck out the side several times. But they would have pulled him because they didn't want to hurt him. He never would have gotten to 20. Now, did his arm get hurt?
Sure. Would have gotten hurt anyway.
Correct. He had
Look at who is Strasburg.
Yeah.
You protected that kid more than anybody's ever been protected, and he got hurt anyway. If your arm's going to go, your arm's going to go. Kerry Wood would have gotten hurt either way. His mechanics were off.
Exactly.
And it hurt his arm. And you want to know how I know his mechanics were off and hurt his arm? Because I pitched just like Kerry Wood. I watched him every single day I could and tried to copy his motion, and I hurt my arm.
Well, and the other reason I know he had bad mechanics, because Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens both said, we can fix you and help you with maintain your arm.
He threw too hard, man.
Well, he was naturally gifted, and he ended up being a good reliever.
He was a great pitcher.
He had a long career.
Yeah.
But what do people remember? That
20
strikeout
He
game
got
on
immortality.
May 6th, 1998.
It's the day I became a baseball fan.
Exactly. Because I was watching the game, and I grabbed you and said, you've got to watch this. You'll never see it again.
Yep. You brought me in the second inning. You just knew something was going on. And I sat there and watched the whole thing. It was beautiful. I was a baseball fan ever since.
And by the way, in case you're wondering, we will talk about this again on the May 6th show because it was just so iconic.
Yeah. I'll be in all my Cubs stuff. May 6th is a holiday for me forever. Now, okay, here's the big sport, right? That everybody always argues about.
Basketball?
Basketball. Players. And this is where I think there's an actual argument to be had where generations cannot mix.
LeBron James cannot play in the 70s or 80s.
Okay.
I'll just go there right now.
You're out of your mind.
He would have been a good player. He wouldn't have the record because he would have been destroyed. He would not have the scoring record.
That is a thing. And it's the same thing with football, right? It's a lot less physical of a game.
You put Larry Bird in today's game or Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan in today's game where they can't be touched.
They score 1 million points.
And no less a person, Reggie Miller, was asked this question. How would Larry Bird do? And he was just said, you got to be kidding me. He would have scored 50 points a game.
Yeah. And again, this is where it comes into play. If they grew up in that era, any NBA player could translate. Steph Curry is a prime example. Sure. He would have translated in any single era where he would struggle. If you just plucked him today and put him in the 60s, the game was so much more physical. You never would have gotten the space to shoot those shots.
Plus the fact there was no three-point line. That would have hurt Steph because he can.
It didn't hurt Pete Maravich.
It didn't help him. I mean, look, when he was playing in the NCAA, he still holds the record for the men's side.
Right.
Because he was just that prolific. And Magic Johnson said, the passes he always made famously, he said, I learned that all from Pete.
Magic Johnson is an interesting one because you and I had this discussion, and this is where people on the internet are going to hate me. And it's okay, I accept it. Would Magic Johnson translate in today's game? And I think the answer is no.
You're out of your mind.
He wouldn't.
How can you say that?
Because he was a true point guard, and true point guards don't exist today.
Lakers Showtime would have translated very well today's game. And don't forget, again, Magic is going to be coming up in a different era.
It would have translated in today's game very easily. But, again, Magic was the dish guy. That doesn't exist anymore.
That's true. Today, you have to score to three. Nobody goes underneath. Everybody sits at the outside and makes threes or tries to make threes. It's a different game, and I actually don't like today's game as well.
Magic Johnson had such good vision of the court that he knew where to dish the ball. And he had such good players around him that he could dish it and get out of the way and get open again. And that's where I think his game doesn't translate in today's game because true point guards don't exist. We don't have that anymore. It's the star. Giannis is taking it up the court.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron is taking it up the court. Luka's taking it up the court. I mean, they're on the same team, so it's a bad example, but you don't have those true point guards anymore.
But don't forget, Magic also was 6'9". He could have easily played forward. He played center in their rookie year to win the championship. He would have been great today. Now, could a guy like Steph Curry, you pop him into the 80s or 90s, and when you're playing against the bad boy Pistons, you had Bill Laimbeer, Isaiah Thomas,
much more physical,
Dennis Rodman. You go underneath at all?
Well, Steph doesn't go underneath.
True, but he still would have gotten powder on the outside.
Yeah, when it was a much more underneath the basket game, too, where three-pointers really weren't a big deal. Ray Allen was really the first player to really start making three-pointers popular. People forget that.
Yeah.
When he was with the Bucks, that's when threes started to become a thing because he was such a good shooter.
And then he went to Boston, and then he went to Miami.
Yeah, well, don't forget he was in Seattle for a while, too.
Oh, God, he was. I forgot.
For a while, like 5 years.
And Gary Payton was as well. But
not at the same time.
no, I know.
Bucks traded for Gary Payton. Worst trade in NBA history. It ruined Milwaukee.
Some people would say that would have been the Kareem trade, but Kareem was a good guy about it and said, "I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Get what you can get." So
Yeah, which is fair.
Kareem just still has the most unstoppable shot in the history of the game.
Yeah.
He would have had this, and he had to develop it because they told him you can't dunk anymore.
Well, and that's the question with Kareem. Is he the same player if he grows up in today's era? Do I think Kareem is still as effective? He's one guy I think you could pluck and put him in today, and he'd be just as electric because he can't stop that shot.
But would he have learned that
But
shot?
he would have never learned that shot because he just would have been dunking all the time.
He had to learn that shot because he couldn't dunk anymore.
It's the greatest blessing he was ever given.
Yes, it was.
He had to learn a new shot and then just realized, oh, this is unstoppable. And I'm still surprised people don't do that shot more often today. It's not, by Kareem's own words, it's not that hard of a shot to learn.
It must be, though.
I don't think it is.
It has to be because somebody else would have done it.
I can do that shot. You can do that shot. We used to play horse and do that shot.
I understand that.
You can learn anything if you're consistent about learning it. You're telling me the best athletes in the world can't learn how to do this and make a basket consistently?
I think there was more to it than that. Kareem had the touch that he could make it from 15, 20 feet outside.
If you give me a year straight to learn that shot where that's all I'm doing, I could learn how to do a sky hook and make it 90% of the time.
You couldn't hit a fastball. You couldn't make the sky hook consistently. It's not as easy as it looks is all I'm saying. Yes, could Giannis learn how to make a sky hook? I hope so.
He's one of the best athletes in the world. Of course he could.
But nobody else has ever done it. That's why there must be something about that shot that nobody else has even tried.
It looks cooler to dunk and to do fadeaway shots. That's all it is.
There's only one guy I ever
saw. It's like when Shaq refused to shoot underhand
at the line.
It's because it didn't look cool.
Yeah, but if he makes it,
that's all it is. But nobody looks at it that way.
There's only one guy that could stop the sky hook, and that was Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, because he was taller than Kareem.
Yeah, he was more physical. I mean, Wilt Chamberlain was like Shaq and like Giannis today, was a full-size man. Most of the guys who were really tall back in that day were real skinny.
He was the one I heard that couldn't translate today, Wilt Chamberlain.
Oh, that's crazy.
I was talking to somebody, and he said Wilt Chamberlain's the one. Because I had this argument with them, too, because I told him we were going to talk about this. Big basketball fan. Huge basketball fan. He said Wilt wouldn't translate today.
How?
And I said the same thing you said, where if he's given the same training and stuff that the other guys are, he would have gotten bigger.
And you forget about Wilt, the fact that he was a four-sport athlete.
Well, and he wouldn't have put up 100 points in a game. It's a different game. He was definitely playing against less skilled athletes back then.
Sure.
He was a freak of nature for his time.
Wait a minute. I'm not sure he was when you look at the Boston team. There wasn't as many great athletes.
Right.
I'll grant you that.
They're all shorter.
But you look at the Celtics during that time, you had Havlicek, who was a 6'1", guy. You had Bill Russell, 6'9", 6'10". I mean, there were great players around.
He was, what, 6'11"?
Who?
Wilt?
7'1".
70, so there you go.
Yeah, he was he was a 7-footer.
There is a guy that I think is very underrated, which is Bill Russell. I think Bill Russell is one of the most underrated athletes in sports history.
People forget how great he was. He was the best big defender to ever play the game. Yep. And I'm not saying that because it's my opinion. That's what other people have said.
Right.
Yeah, the guys like Elgin Baylor that were back in the day, Elvin Hayes, they all said Russell was just amazing underneath. Plus, he could score. It's
Celtics that are always underrated. Larry Bird and Bill Russell are two of the most underrated players of all time. Let's not forget Larry Bird broke his hand on his shooting hand before he came into the league and then hurt his back for the second half of his career.
Which was the dumbest thing ever because Larry Bird, give him credit, a blue-collar kid, the hick from French Lick is what they called him. He was helping his mom put in a driveway. Go and pay somebody to put in the driveway.
Why would I pay somebody for what I can do myself? Was his famous line.
I understand that because you won't hurt your back.
He didn't know he was going to hurt his back. God bless him. He's my hero.
I think, talking to all the players from his generation, they are giving him his props. And we had this conversation, who is better, Magic or Bird? I think most people are going with Bird at this point.
Because it is Bird. And it's not even close. If Larry Bird is on those Lakers teams, the Lakers don't lose in the 80s.
Not with Magic and Bird on that team.
If Magic goes to the Celtics, he's not seen as the same player anymore.
Well,
I'm sorry.
There were two different.
I know you're a big Magic fan, but let's be real right now.
No, I am. Let's face it. You had the Showtime Lakers and you had the blue collar Celtics. Both played different games. Celtics were pounding it.
Yeah.
But then there was Larry, who could make every pass the Magic could make. And he was a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
I think he probably was better, but Magic was a different player. He was a point guard.
I think Magic was better for the Lakers. He fit the Lakers so well because he was a true point guard.
Yeah, and he didn't need to score.
He didn't.
You know?
Larry Bird was a scorer, and he could make those passes, but Larry ran the floor in a different way.
Exactly. Magic didn't have to make a 3-point shot,
right?
So he didn't even try. He would go underneath, and he liked doing that.
Yeah. Very different players, but it would have been interesting to see.
But give them credit. Without Magic and Bird, the NBA is not what it is today.
Larry and Bird paved the way for Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons.
And then Michael
which
Jordan.
paved the way for Michael Jordan, which
Yeah.
paved the way for everybody else today.
Because when I was a kid, if you wanted to see the NBA Finals, you had to wait until after the 10:30 news
on tape
for
delay.
a tape delay, and you all sometimes didn't see the whole game. It was just
That's crazy.
different time.
That is crazy. Speaking of basketball, though, you let us know what you think about generational athletes in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. We need to redo our brackets. I did not do well. 2 of my Final Four teams and 1 of my finals teams are out.
I still have Ole Miss. I still have Duke. So I'm still good.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm about to lose my 3rd Final Four team as well.
I lost St. John's, so I was done at that
I also
point.
lost St. John's, and that was the one I was nervous about because I knew it was going to be Arkansas St. John's.
Correct.
And whichever one of those teams won, I thought was going to go a long way.
And I think Arkansas will go on that run.
And I think so too. But let's redo this real quick because
go ahead.
We have the first match, Auburn and Michigan. Who do you think wins that one?
Auburn.
I also have Auburn. Ole Miss, Michigan State.
Ole Miss. I'm riding them. I had them before. I'm keeping them.
Michigan State.
No.
Florida, Maryland. I had neither of these teams, by the way, in my Elite Eight.
Me either. Florida.
I also have Florida. Texas Tech and Arkansas. Also 2 teams I didn't have.
Arkansas.
I also have Arkansas. Duke, Arizona.
Duke.
I'm going with Duke too. BYU, Bama.
This is where I had Alabama, Wisconsin, and I was taking Alabama. I'm still going to stick with Alabama.
I had Alabama and VCU.
Can I do my Bugs Bunny Alabama bit?
No, you can't.
Fine.
I'm also going with Bama, but I had to think about that one. It's just, I mean, BYU beat a very overrated Wisconsin team. That's all it is. Nothing personal.
Nobody
it happens
underneath.
every single year.
Nobody underneath.
No athletic people underneath at all. Houston, Purdue.
Purdue's the one I picked, so I'm going to continue with Purdue.
I also picked Purdue. I had this matchup, and I picked
now
Purdue.
I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've learned this. My pick's bad.
I know, but we do these picks separate.
Kentucky, Tennessee.
I had neither of these teams. I'm taking Tennessee.
I have Tennessee as my finals winner. I had in my original bracket. I'm going to stick with them this one, Tennessee. And then final 4, we have Duke, Tennessee.
Duke.
I got Tennessee.
I have Duke winning. So
you picked Duke the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your
I'm
first
just gonna
bracket.
stick
I
it.
picked Tennessee, so I'm going with Tennessee in that one. Auburn, Arkansas. Bruce Pearl.
I'm going to go with
versus
Arkansas.
Calipari.
Arkansas. They're the team that's on that run.
Auburn.
Okay.
Too strong of a team. Auburn in the finals. Tennessee. Well, you have Duke, Tennessee, right?
Yeah, I have Duke.
So who
on
you
that
picking?
corner.
You picking Duke to win it?
I'm taking Duke to win it. Yeah.
All right. Or no, you have not Duke, Tennessee.
got-
I'm screwing this up. I messed up my bracket. Who did you have? You had Arkansas and Duke, right?
I had, well, at this point, I've got Florida coming out against Arkansas
Yeah.
on one side of the Final Four bracket. I
Not
think,
Final Four. I have Auburn versus Arkansas, Duke versus Tennessee in the Final Four.
Okay.
Who do you have?
Uh,
We're messing up our brackets.
You're completely messing me up now. I've got Ole Miss against
Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Who do you got going to the finals?
I've got Duke Duke's in the finals against Arkansas, I think, at this point.
All right. I have Tennessee in the finals against Auburn.
Either could happen, considering how badly you screwed me up. We got through the Sweet 16. Let's do the next weekend.
I took my notes and messed it up. I took them both
That's
on
all
the
right.
same side of the
That's all
bracket,
right.
so that's my bad.
Bottom line is, I've got Duke winning. You've got Tennessee winning.
Yes.
I think Arkansas is on that magical run. Calipari's such a good coach.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be St. John's or Arkansas going on a run.
Yes.
I just didn't know which one it was going to be. I picked wrong.
St. John's couldn't make an outside shot. They couldn't make a three to save their life.
No, and it was the inexperience in the NCAA tournament for those players showed.
It did.
Where for Arkansas, they had 3 guys that had been there before, and that was the big difference.
Right. And I give Calipari credit. He is a great coach. He's now wearing the ugliest red polka dotted stripe checked whatever jackets.
Stick with it. But you and I have had a great show. As you all know, you cannot have a conversation with your dad without your father getting the last word, so it is all you.
It's really easy. Congratulations to my Wisconsin Badgers for winning the women's NCAA hockey tournament on an outstanding play to tie the game and to win the game. I do hope we get to see Bucky Brutus 4 next year.
I knew that was going to be your last word.
I
knew
it.
I knew it. Thank you, as always, so much for watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.